Hey everyone, and welcome back to Real English Voices. I'm Tom.
And I'm Ria. It's great to be back with all of you.
It really is. Today, we're diving into a topic that's close to our hearts and I know is a massive part of so many of your lives, the journey of learning English.
It's a huge journey, Tom, and I think sometimes people forget it is a journey. It's not a destination you arrive at overnight.
Absolutely not. And I want to start right there. Why is English so important right now in 2025? Why should someone dedicate all this time and energy to mastering it?
Well, the obvious answer is the global connection. English is often called the lingua franca of the world, and it's not just in business anymore. It's in technology, science, travel, and most importantly, the internet and media. If you want to consume content, truly understand global news, or just watch that amazing new series without relying solely on subtitles, English is the key.
That's a fantastic point about content. Think about the sheer volume of knowledge and entertainment locked behind that language barrier. It's like having access to a library with millions of books, but you can only read a few hundred unless you know the language.
Exactly. And professionally, it's a massive opportunity multiplier. I've seen it firsthand. Someone can be brilliant in their field, a coder, an engineer, a marketing expert, but if they can't communicate their ideas to an international team or client, their potential career ceiling is instantly lowered. English often becomes the deciding factor in promotions or securing that dream job abroad.
It opens up physical doors, but also mental doors, doesn't it? It allows you to think and interact with people from cultures you might never have encountered otherwise. It's not just about grammar, it's about cultural fluency.
Ah, that's so true. I had a friend, Marta, who learned English primarily because she was obsessed with classic rock music, like the Beatles and Queen. She wanted to understand the poetry in the lyrics. She started with song lyrics, and eventually it led her to an exchange program in London. It changed her entire life trajectory, all because of a desire to understand Bohemian Rhapsody.
That is such a relatable story. We often find the initial spark in something personal and emotional, and then it grows into something much bigger. But speaking of the journey, we need to be honest about the struggles because it is hard. It can be incredibly frustrating.
It is. Let's talk about the big ones. The number one struggle I hear about is speaking confidence. People know the grammar, they know the vocabulary, but when time comes to open their mouth, they freeze.
The fear of making a mistake, it's paralyzing. I remember teaching a class once, and one student, David, was excellent on paper. But when I asked him a question, he'd stare at his feet and whisper a one-word answer. I finally sat down with him and asked, "What are you afraid of?"
What did he say?
He said he was afraid of sounding stupid. That's the emotional core of it. We associate mistakes with failure or lack of intelligence, but we need to flip that script. Mistakes are data. They show you where you need to focus next.
That's such a crucial point, Tom. And on the flip side of speaking, there's listening comprehension. English pronunciation is notoriously tricky. We swallow sounds, we link words together. It's very different from the clear, slow dialogue often found in textbooks. Someone learns the word going to, and then they hear a native speaker say gonna, and they feel lost.
Right. And then there are all the idioms and phrasal verbs. You learn that look up means to search for something, but then you hear look up to, which means to respect someone, and your mind is blown. It feels like you have to memorize 10 different meanings for every single verb.
It's a linguistic maze, and the vocabulary itself is massive. English is greedy. It borrows from everywhere. It's why sometimes learners feel like they're just running on a treadmill, memorizing word lists that never end.
So let's move from identifying the struggles to offering some practical solutions. Let's start with speaking and overcoming that fear. What's your top tip for someone who feels frozen?
My top tip is this. Find a low-stakes environment. Don't try to have your first complex conversation with your boss or during a job interview. Start by talking to yourself. I know it sounds crazy, but narrate your day.
That's brilliant.
Yes, as you make coffee, say out loud, I am pouring the water. I need to grind the beans. If that feels too weird, use a voice recorder on your phone. Read a paragraph from a book and record yourself. Listen back. You'll become aware of your own stumbling blocks without the pressure of an audience. I love that. And I'd add, once you're ready for a human being, embrace the language exchange partner concept. Find someone online who wants to learn your native language, and you teach them for 30 minutes, and they speak English with you for 30 minutes. It's mutually beneficial, and you both accept that you're going to make mistakes. It's a safe space.
That's the perfect transition from internal monologue to real dialogue. Okay, how about listening? How do we train our ears to catch gonna and the rapid flow of native speech?
The key is immersion in authentic, non-learner content. Stop watching only English language learning videos where the speaker speaks slowly and clearly. That's a great start, but it's not the real world. You need to start listening to things intended for native speakers.
Podcasts are perfect for this, obviously.
Of course. Listen to a podcast about a hobby you love, cooking, history, football. The content will keep you engaged, and you'll naturally start picking up the pacing, the accents, and the reduced forms of speech. And here's a tip. Don't try to understand every single word. That's the mistake. Focus on the main idea, the gist. If you get 70% of the meaning, you're doing great.
That is such an important point. Trying to understand 100% is exhausting and defeats the purpose. You stop listening for meaning and start listening for individual words.
Let's move on to vocabulary. The endless word lists. How do we make vocabulary stick in our long-term memory?
We need to move away from memorization and toward personalization and context. When you learn a new word, don't just write down the definition. Write down the word, its meaning, and then create 3 different sentences using that word that are about your life.
Can you give us an example?
Sure. Let's say you learn the word perseverance. Instead of just writing continued effort to do or achieve something, you write, my biggest challenge is maintaining my perseverance with my English studies. I admire my mother's perseverance in raising a family and working full-time. I need to show more perseverance when I go to the gym.
That makes the word emotionally relevant. You're tagging it with a personal memory or feeling, which helps the brain recall it.
Exactly. And another game changer is topic immersion. Instead of learning random words, pick a theme like finance or healthcare and spend a week only consuming English content and learning vocabulary related to that topic. Watch videos, read articles, and listen to podcasts about finance. All your new words will reinforce each other because they are contextually linked.
That makes so much sense. It creates a vocabulary ecosystem. Let's pivot slightly because we promised a little bit of fun and relatability. Let's share some of the most common, funny, or just plain understandable mistakes that English learners make. We've all been there.
Oh, the list is long and wonderful. My favorite is the confusion between borrow and lend. I've heard countless people say, can I lend your pen? Meaning, can I borrow your pen? They know the concept, but the direction of the action is mixed up. It's harmless, but always gets a little smile.
Oh, that's a classic. And the great adjective-adverb mix-up. Someone might say, I speak English very good. And you know exactly what they mean, but grammatically, it should be very well. It's such an understandable transfer error from their native grammar structure.
And the confusion with false cognates. These are words that look the same in English and your language, but have totally different meanings. I had a student once tell me, "I am pregnant to watch this film," when she meant eager or excited. In her language, the word looked similar to pregnant, but meant eager. We all had a good laugh, and it became a memorable learning moment.
See, that's the perfect example of why those mistakes are great. That student will never make that mistake again, and neither will anyone in the room. You have to learn to laugh at your mistakes, not be embarrassed by them.
Which brings us beautifully to the topic of mindset and motivation. Because, Tom, the biggest obstacle isn't the grammar or the vocabulary, it's the lack of consistent motivation over months and years.
Absolutely. The initial excitement fades. The difficulty ramps up. Life gets in the way. People start to feel that sense of burnout. My biggest piece of advice here is to redefine success.
How so?
People often set massive goals. I want to be fluent in 6 months. That's a recipe for disappointment. Instead, set micro goals and celebrate the small wins. Success isn't fluency. Success is watching a 10-minute YouTube video today without subtitles and understanding 80%. Success is ordering food at a restaurant without hesitation. Success is having a 5-minute conversation with a native speaker and not freezing up. I love that. Focus on process, not just outcome. And the other thing is consistency over intensity. It is much, much better to study for 20 minutes every single day than to cram for 5 hours every Sunday.
Why is that?
Because of how the brain builds neural pathways. Those 20-minute daily exposures keep the language active in your mind. The 5-hour cram session is intense, but the information fades over the next 6 days, and you spend the next Sunday relearning what you forgot. Little and often is the secret sauce to language learning.
That consistency also helps you avoid the dreaded comparison trap. You see someone online who seems to have mastered English in a year, and you feel discouraged. But you don't know their background. You don't know how much time they dedicate. Focus on your own progress compared to your own self from a month ago.
That's a key part of the emotional journey, and you need to connect your learning to your purpose. When you feel unmotivated, go back to the why. Is it to travel? Put a picture of Rome or New York on your wall. Is it for a better career? Look at the job listing you're aiming for. Make your why a visible emotional reminder.
Let's wrap up by talking about the ultimate reward. How does English truly change a person's life and opportunities, not just theoretically, but on a human level?
It changes everything. I had a letter from a listener a few months ago. He was an older man, an immigrant to Canada. He had worked manual labor jobs for 20 years. He was smart, but his English was basic. He dedicated himself to learning in his 40s. He started a small business selling handicrafts from his home country.
That's wonderful.
But here's the kicker. He wrote to say that the biggest change wasn't the business success. It was that he could finally sit down with his teenage children and truly understand their conversations about school, their friends, and their culture. He could engage with his neighbors and finally feel like a true member of the community. He felt heard.
Wow, that's a powerful emotional payoff. It moves from a professional skill to a personal, deeply human connection. It affects your sense of belonging.
It does. And on the opportunity front, it's not always about getting a six-figure job. It's about access to information and education. Think about students in non-English speaking countries who can now access the top universities' free online courses. It's democratizing education.
And for travelers, it's a total game changer. You move from being a tourist who just takes photos to being a traveler who has meaningful conversations with local people, who learns the real story behind a monument, who can ask for help when they're lost. It transforms a trip from seeing the world to experiencing the world.
And to bring it full circle to where we started, Tom, English gives you a voice in the global conversation. It empowers you to share your unique culture, your perspective, and your knowledge with the 7 billion other people who speak or are learning the language.
That's the perfect note to end on. If you're listening, wherever you are on this journey, whether you're just starting or you're feeling stuck at an intermediate level, remember this. Every mistake is a lesson, every difficult conversation is a victory, and every word you learn brings you closer to your goals.
Don't be afraid to sound silly. Be afraid of not trying. Find your purpose, be consistent, and keep going. We are cheering you on every single step of the way.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Real English Voices. We love sharing this journey with you.
Join us next time for more tips, stories, and motivation. Until then, keep speaking, keep listening, and keep learning.
Bye for now.
Goodbye.